There we go. So this is a meeting of the Law Enforcement Community Engagement Committee. And we have two speakers with us today to talk about the boards of visitors at the Hancock County Jail and at the Maine State Prison. And they're going to get to introduce themselves and then we'll start. So Tim, you go first.
And it me?
Yeah, if you just want to give a quick introduction.
I'm Tim Richardson, title as a jail administrator here at the Hancock County Jail. I've been here for a little over 6 years. We've made a lot of changes here in the 6 years with the help of Antonio. He was a commissioner. He was a big part of the progress we made with the jail. But that's where we stand. We're trying to improve it every day. The jail's not full of bad people. That's a big thing. Some people have tied up in some tough situations. And we are a correction facility. We help them correct anything they feel that should be corrected. It's their choice. We just try to give them the tools to move forward if they want to do it. We're just here for support. So that's where we are.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Perry, would you like to introduce?
Thank you, Shemaya. I'm really quite nerdy when it comes to this sort of technology. The only thing I can do is mute myself or unmute myself. So I don't ask for a whole lot of other capacities like adding documents and that sort of stuff. Name is Perry Gates. What have I done? Well, let's just leave it. Let's keep it to the Maine State Prison. This is sort of the last 10 or 15 years of my time. It's a volunteer job, no pay involved. I was asked to join those many years ago by a friend, very good friend, John Wilson, who was on the Board of Visitors at the time. He started Wooden Boat Magazine. I'm sure you've all seen that. I knew him years ago when we were helping to start the Outward Bound School on Hurricane Island. I met him, I guess, 50, 60 years ago. That dates me. So what have we done? Maine State Prison. I think our focus really has been to try to interpret the legislation that created the Board of Visitors so that it makes some sort of sense to our mission, our job, which is to guard the public safety for the citizens of the state of Maine. That's pretty much what we do. And as a result of that, and thanks in large part, and I do that in uppercase, LARGE, to Commissioner Randall Liberty, who was a third of warden that I worked with. He's just extraordinary. He did more for the Maine State Prison than anyone that I can think of. And I give myself away because he brought in people from the outside. I will get to details later on, but the result has been that the Maine State Prison is now, I think, it's either second or third listed nationally as the most effective, caring, well-positioned, restorative correctional facility in the United States. It really is. And why more of us, including this group, don't know that is what the mission of the Board of Visitors is all about, even though that's not what our mission is about. So I'll still stop there, you ask questions, and I can wax poetic, as you will soon find, for longer than you may want. And I'll hope that someone like Shemaya can just mute me if I carry on. Thank you.
Thank you. We have actually, this is a good time to go over our meeting agreements, which includes if anybody feels like, oh gosh, something's going a little long, we have an agreement about we can do this. So I will not mute you, but we can.
I will pay attention, however.
Okay, terrific. But so Suzanne, would you like to read our meeting agreements?
Sure. Speaking with respect for all, listening with respect for all, being mindful of time is Shemaya just mentioned, and you can signal timeout anyone can do that. The hand sign letter C for clarification or the need for more discussion. Thumbs up for a yes answer. Thumbs down for no. Thumbs sideways indicates mixed feelings or a need for more discussion. And we'll mute our microphones when not speaking to prevent feedback and background noise unless that presents a difficulty.
Thank you very much. So we'd like to start with both Tim and Perry getting to give kind of an overview of the Board of Visitors for each one that you're involved with. So we have a sense of the structure and how your regular business carries on, you know, details like how often you meet and things like that. And Tim, would you like to start?
I can. We have a panel of 6 volunteers. These are all volunteers that have interest in the facility, in the community. They're very important role players of our program. Legislature, as Perry stated, there is a laws regarding our Board of Visitors. And I had a very informal board up until about 2 years ago, when Board of Visitors became very point of interest throughout the state. We activated a full-time panel that's available 7 days a week. They reach out to me, I reach out to them as needed. And then we meet quarterly by Zoom. And it's very flowing. The board controls a meeting. We do not set an agenda. We just set the date. They come in, we discuss what is going on, what needs they feel we need, what concerns they have, what feedback they're getting from our resident population, how we can make things better and still stay within the guidelines set by operating the facility by the state. So it's a valuable tool that we just made formal a couple of years ago. Prior to that, when I first came here, we've had active people that was just never titled as Board of Visitors. So it's grown in the last couple of years, and it's very helpful in the operation, because a lot of times we don't hear directly what the main concerns are. Sometimes our residents don't feel like they can talk freely to us, which is unfortunate. We try to keep a very open line of communications with them. And when we get to the point that that doesn't happen, these Board of Visitors that are in our facility from time to time by Zoom or somewhere in person that come in to do some contact with social workers and such, they bring those concerns to us, and we direct them from that avenue, if that makes sense. I think what I'd like to is hear how Perry runs things and learn from him, and then hopefully we can answer questions as we go together, sharing responses as questions come up. But in short, that's what we have. I don't want to get too deep into it and then steal some of his thunder. So let's have Perry step in and he can explain what he's going, how he handles things and his process, and we can see if we can compare notes and answer questions as we go.
First thing I got to do is unmute myself there. Thanks, Tim. And once again, I can sense immediately just the different arena that we function in. We are obviously statewide because of the catchment area for inmates, residents, should I say, at the prison. In fact, we have men, no women at the Maine State Prison. There in Wyndham. We have men from all over the United States. Many, in some instances, there for their own safety because of the prisons they came from. They would not have survived more than a month or so. So we inherit people from other places. Consequently, the Board of Visitors has an overview for at least the whole state, if not the nature of justice in the United States. We can probably attach as much that to ourselves as we want to. We have a very diverse member. We are all active. Excuse me, one is not being replaced as asked to be. Who is, let me see now, Bill Schneider, who was a former AG for the state of Maine during part of the Janet Mills time when she was AG. John Wilson, I just mentioned earlier. Myself, Wendelan, what's her last name? She's a licensed psychiatrist, and this is, we have to, by statute, we have to have a licensed psychologist on our board, and then Denise Altewater from the Passamaquoddy Indian tribe. And she's been on the board, Lord knows, for longer than I have. It's very difficult for her to get to Warren 4 times a year. We meet at the prison all the time, with the exception of our Zoom years in COVID. And so I think I asked Denise if she could find someone else from the tribe to take her place. Then we make the recommendation to the governor, who then makes the selection. So we don't have any clout in any of that, which brings me to my perhaps final point, is that we don't have any clout in anything. We are, as a Board of Visitors, when I first heard of what a Board of Visitors name, I smiled to myself and said, what the heck is a Board of Visitors? What sort of leverage do they have by visiting something? And come to find out that not much. That being said, we are hugely supportive of the work being done, I mentioned earlier, by Commissioner Liberty when he was the warden here. And I've worked for 3 other wardens before him. And Matt Magnuson, who is a warden now. All great people, well-intentioned, highly motivated, grossly underpaid, given no credit or recognition for what they do. It's, I think, our biggest mission, and I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. But anyhow, that's the structure of what we do. Tim, I think we are perhaps what you guys are, just with a multiple. It's the same sort of stuff. It's just a multiple because we have a bigger area of people that we work with. It all is very much the same. And I think it's an opportunity to gain an overview of what is going on, and then report on that back to the legislature. That's perhaps I will not sort of forecast that any further, and simply say that that's our biggest challenge. And a quick story around that. A number of years ago, when we were meeting with some of the legislature and the Criminal Justice Committee, I asked one of them what she, no names, thought of the Board of Visitors. And they sort of looked at me with this funny expression and said, Board of Visitors? What's a Board of Visitors? At that point, my heart sank, having done this for all these years. And I just, if they don't read what we produce, and they have the control over the money that's spent on what we're meant to, watch over on behalf of the citizens of the state of Maine, then what the heck? So I got over that very quickly. It took me about 30 seconds, but I got beyond that and kept right on going. And we now are making a big point of trying to get to the Criminal Justice Committee and sort of grab them by the scruff of the neck and say, look, you have got one of the shining stars in prison reform in the United States right on your doorstep. And we get zero amount of positive recognition through the papers around it. Tim, I'm sure you have the same going on with you. And there's just great stuff that happens. It is all positive, it is good. And I'll be darned why it's so hard to sell positive news, but it is. So that's our task, is to sort of keep that going. We work directly for the governor, the governors, should I say. The governors, as they change positions and hands over the years, really just let us do what we do. But I'll come back to that point again, and you'll hear it for the rest of this morning, and that is that we have little or no actionable leverage in what our observations are. And so as your group, Shemaya, is thinking about, I think communication is what you mentioned to me a couple of months ago, and forming a board of visitors or something that parallels what Tim and I are working with, irrespective of the catchment area. Think about leverage. Think about what sort of authority or actionable profile, actionable what? Yeah, just action. Think about what sort of action you want to invest in your board of visitors. Do they have any real say in what goes on?
And I do just want to clarify, we're not trying to form a board of visitors.
Okay.
We are a community group that works on opening up communication between law enforcement and community service provider organizations and members of the public. And we organized this meeting because a member of the community came to us and said, we'd really like to see you have something to do with the boards of visitors, particularly in Hancock County, because that's our focus. So we started down the path of learning what is a board of visitors in the first place. And that's what led to our contact with you and also with Tim. And just a question that came up in what you said a few minutes ago is, how often do you get to actually visit with residents at the prison, either online or in person, or other members of the board? Like Tim spoke about that he, the board there does that. Do you do that also?
We do, with the exception of COVID, the COVID years, when the prison was totally locked down. No one could go in, literally no one could go in or out because of the pandemic. And all home visits were canceled. It was pretty grim. Oh, but yes, in normal times, and I think we're hoping to get back to that perhaps with our June meeting, certainly by September, all our meetings are at the prison. And they're either, yes, go ahead.
And do you have video meetings in this COVID time so that?
Oh, yeah. In fact,
okay.
our next one is next week.
And do the members of the board have video meetings with residents at the prison?
No, that has not been the case, and largely because there has been no internet connection or electronic connection between the residents and the outside until fairly recently. And the only reason that they have it now is simply because of the extraordinary education program started by Doris Buffett and the Sunshine Lady Foundation at the prison for post-secondary degrees, either associate degrees, bachelor's degrees, and now onto master's and doctorate degrees for inmates. Hard to believe. And of course, there are the naysayers who say, I got to go to prison to get a free education. Well, you sort of brush that off. But what has happened, though, is because of that marvelous program, and I'll give you a figure around that, which this will definitely change your mind if it needs changing. That has just reaped incredible benefits for everyone, and that we meet with the men regularly around that program. And there are other 20 some odd other available programs for the men at the prison that come in from the outside. The vast majority of them are for free. It doesn't cost the Maine Department of Corrections very much money to run these things. The Sunshine Lady Foundation education program has spent over $3 or $4 million at least over a couple of years to educate 150 men who have received degrees. And here's the fact that I want to leave you all with today. Of those, let's call it 150 people, men, who have been educated through the Maine State Prison Education Program, lodged at UMA in Augusta, the recidivism rate is 1%. 1%. Of those men who have been through the education program and have received a degree and left the prison, well, maybe today it's 2%. Call it 2% of them have returned to prison. Nationally, the recidivism rate is 67%. Now, if that doesn't speak to the people who hold the purse strings for the checkbook and the exchequer, I don't know what does. So forget all the feel-good stuff that comes out of people getting a degree for being smarter and for making good decisions. Forget all that stuff. The simple math is that of the 150 men that have finished the program, 3 perhaps have returned to prison over the course of 10 years. That's pretty damned amazing. And that's what puts Maine at the forefront of national prison reform. And I credit that program, which we, the Board of Visitors, by the way, had nothing to do with, although we just inherited the Doris Buffett Foundation work. And I'm obviously very excited about that. They've had some changes recently, but at any rate, that's now, Shemaya, I've lost my thread of what you asked me. So I think I better stop and have you ask me again.
Okay, because we're a little, and it's such good information, I think, for folks here about the education program. And I do wonder how having that program has affected access for members of the boards of visitors while we have COVID. So if that's had an additional benefit, that it's opened up lines of communication, that's.
Well, I think, as you say, you asked about, do we contact the prisoners or the men there? The short answer is yes, but up until about 3 or 4 years ago, it wasn't via the internet.
Right.
Even when it was available, because they didn't have internet.
Yeah.
And it was because of the Sunshine Lady Foundation education program that internet came into the prison, and the administration and the Department of Corrections at the state level relaxed some of their mindsets and said, we can control this. There's limited use of the internet. We can put some barriers around that if we have to, and let's go ahead. So they did. And now they have an intranet system within the prison where the men can contact each other. And of course, they now can access the libraries outside the prison. They can have all sorts of conversations with people based, on some filters that they have to go through. But yes, we do contact them that way now, but we would prefer to do it in person.
Yeah.
And I say that with some real feeling. I've gotten to know some extraordinary human beings in that facility.
Okay, thank you. And Tim, it looked like you were ready to say something a couple of minutes ago. And I'm wondering if you'd like to fill in pieces there, and then we could open up for questions from folks who are here.
Like Perry said, we're doing the same thing attempting to do the same thing that they're doing, but at a very smaller scale, where we house, hopefully we're, 60 or less inmates at a time. We do house males and female populations. So that
really?
They both are offered these same opportunities. So we're doing the same thing. The biggest thing we've opened up in the last couple of years is our GED or high set. It looks like if everything goes right, it's like we'll get them to that point, then unfortunately they'll move on to the state facility, and they get the degree there. Looks like we're going to have our first person gain the degree while at Hancock County here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I think they're actually testing today, I think. So that's a big thing for us. And we can step up and show, we're also doing the same things. Everybody wants to make a difference. We don't want to see our goal is an empty jail. We would love to have an empty facility. So anything we can do to prevent them from returning to a facility is what we're trying to do, but also hold them accountable for the decisions and actions that they had that brought them here.
Thank you. And if anybody has a question, would you like to raise your hand, either electronically or in person?
I have a question of the assembled other 6 people here. 7 people I can see, Shemaya, and that is, what do you all see and or hear and what you've heard that is the lowest common denominator between the size of the Maine State Prison and the jail setting that Tim is running? There are lowest common denominators, to my way of thinking, in everything we do. And therefore, it is that lowest common denominator, that lowest, reduce it right down to the lowest nut of what the truth really is, that I believe, Shemaya, you and your interest in communication will want to carry forward. It may not be through a board of visitors, it may be through some other structure, but there are things. So do any of you have you heard anything that sounds, well, Tim said this and Perry said that, that sounds sort of like the same thing? I guess not, or we're not on that page yet.
Oh, Rebecca.
So do you mean lowest common denominator? I'm a little confused on. So do you mean the pieces of what you've been talking about that we would apply to Hancock County Jail Board of Visitors? You know, the Sunshine Lady education, you know, or some other kind of program like that, or?
Rebecca, I guess my question was attempting to sort of smoke out some responses, some feelings perhaps on your part in general is, you know, if there's visitation with residents with Tim's group, and they're also an intentional visit with reputations in our 1,000 men population at the prison, that's a lowest common denominator. They both go visit the residents. That's something that both units do, although the magnitude of the operation is far different. They both do that. Ergo, if that works for both of us, then perhaps it's something that Shemaya and your group will want to carry forward into what you do. So one-to-one contact, personal visitation is important.
Okay, so one thing that pops to mind is the communication with the legislature, you know, that's so poor. I would like to see that increased. That would be something I would like to enhance and make a positive experience.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Tim, what do you have in terms of people that come in from the legislature and actually spend some time reviewing their legislative jurisdiction over your operation?
None. They don't come in. We just, as you know, we get the requirements, what's required through statute, and that's really all we have. When we do, you know, we bring it up during our biannual meetings with the DOC. They come and inspect our facility. We bring that up and see, get feedback, see what we can do to improve or what we may excel at in that program. But like I said, you have 50-fold the experience that we do, and that's why I'm here a lot, is to listen to you to see what we can do to enhance this. I mean, I've been at this for 6 years as in this position, and the facility I came from did not have this, so this is all new to me, and we really wanted to make this as meaningful as possible. That's why we really open it up to our volunteers to have as much contact as possible to our population, so we can really hear from what's going on, you know, in our facility that we can fix that is meaningful. I can sit here and make decisions what I feel is right, but it may be going, and I'll admit I've had that happen. I've made decisions here that weren't the direction we need to go. And once the last couple of years with our meetings and the feedback from our population, then, you know, we've changed some policies to offset some decisions that I made that really made a difference to the population.
And to your question, Perry, as I understand it, the county boards of visitors report to the sheriff for that county, and they don't have a requirement to report to the legislature. So that would be a difference between the state and the county level.
Great point. Well, then maybe what you guys are looking forward to creating might want to bump that up the ladder a bit and report to a statewide organization of people interested in communication structure. I don't know if that exists. I'm just making it up, but there's something that tells me that, well, back up on that a bit. Our reporting to the legislature, as I've noted, has not seemed to have made a whole lot of difference. Therefore, I'm back in Tim's court, so why do it? Well, we have to, that's why.
And did you tell me when we spoke before that you used to write a more substantial report and have kind of got burned out that nobody read it? I understand we've had some feedback from somebody who wasn't able to be here today. He kind of suggested possible questions, among other things. And he mentioned that he has copies of the reports from the last couple of years, and he felt like there wasn't a lot in them. And maybe that's an area for expansion if they were more in depth. Something like what one of the things our group can do is to help get, if it's public information, to help get that around so that things can be addressed more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. The reports that John Wilson wrote back, 10, 15 years ago were 7, 8, 10 pages long. And I think the legislature, the committee, the Criminal Justice Committee, perhaps had the same response to those in terms of what they actually did, as in write new legislation, would to the same response that they had to what ones we've written recently, which are a page or two, and based on notes taken from Zoom meetings. So if their response, I'm just being really pragmatic. If their response is going to be X, Y, Z, based on what we do, A, B, C, then we don't, it's not our show. Again, this is the leverage part. We can go to the governor who is our boss and say, this is what's happening. Can you provide some help here? We can go to her in this case and say, which we have, what can you do? And she can only request. I think there are other ways of doing this, and without giving away secrets, I know Bill Schneider and I are planning to go to the legislative committee as soon as it's opened up, post-COVID type of opened up, and just say, this is what's going on. Well, one of the things, a fact, and Tim, you probably don't have the same problem, but we have, of the 162 positions, employee positions at the prison, we now have, last count, I think it was 36 of them are open. And the reason that they're open is that the employees go down the road to Bath Iron Works, where they get paid twice as much with much better benefits. Some miraculously, some have come back from Bath Iron Works and said, we want to work at the prison for far less money because the environment at the prison is better. The working environment is better for us, for me personally, for my emotional sense of stability. That's pretty neat to hear, but it doesn't do it. That's not an end game type of behavior. I think what really, I'm sorry.
And it looks like Tim had something to add to that too.
No, or when you start percentage-wise, we're all doing the same thing. We're down 3 staff members here, 3 critical staff members. Of a staff of 21, we're down 3. So we're all actively hiring, trying to find the right people to come to work for us, because we. So I'll use this as a platform. If anybody knows somebody looking for a job, 19 years or older, I mean, I'd like to speak with them. I mean, to get this as a stepping stone. I know Chief Mosier, I'm sure he's always looking for officers around the county-wide, and the jail is a great stepping stone to get a couple of years experience, build a work resume, work ethics. You're in contact with the officers all the time. It's something that we're willing to assist somebody to move forward in a career if that's something they want to do. So, but it's a hard factor, but we are blessed here at Hancock County with the commissions that we have and the a panel we have for our Board of Visitors, because they are very in tune with what's going on in the facility, and they'll really want us to make changes and allow us to make changes in-house. And with the sheriff setting in on our meetings, it goes up the ladder. He'll go from, he'll take it from here, then they have the monthly Maine Sheriff's, quarterly Maine Sheriff Association meetings. And any concerns that we have will be taken there. Then they have a spokesperson that speaks with, so that would be our channel, I guess, to get the legislature would be through the Maine Sheriff Association. That would be our avenue to get to that point. If that helps at all. I'll clarify what we're.
Thank you. Yeah.
Jemima, if I could just interject here, I think what in all of our meetings, either by Zoom or in person at the prison, have noted at some time during the meeting that there is a crushing need to get the word out that a career in corrections is a great career. That is because some of the men and women that we have working at the Maine State Prison are extraordinary human beings. And they're there because their hearts are there and they want to be there. They're doing great stuff. And I think if more people knew about that, and if more young people who were considering a career in corrections, that they would have a less difficult time in hiring people. Add to that some benefits and a little better pay. Substantially better pay, and I think you got a winning combination. But it's the fact that the career in corrections, and Tim and Glenn, I'm sure you've participated in this as well. You guys are in the trenches. You're doing it. It's not looked upon as something that is favorably. They just don't want to do it. It has a bad rap.
And I think that what this points out is that it's something the LECEC could look toward in the future, is addressing that directly. And I kind of want to bring us back to the boards of visitors just for this time, if that's okay with everybody. I wondered really specifically for each of you, how often do conversations between members of the boards of visitors and residents happen? Like, is it like 6 times a month, or, you know what I mean? That kind of statistics. How does that add up?
If you look at, they're in here, our 6 panels, they're in contact with our resident population weekly. So you put those 6 people in, a lot of them are, they don't backpack each other. So if somebody's speaking and feels that there's another need, they're all got everybody's good at something. Everybody has an interest of something. And they know if one of our residents have an interest or care that one of the other visitors should be board or visitors should be speaking with, they'll direct them to that person. So weekly, we're seeing, just me throw a number, half to 3/4 of our population is speaking to our board of visitors weekly to keep because we got to keep an open line of communications. A lot of follow-ups. Our board, they don't let things linger. When they're on something, they're on something, and they follow up weekly to see how things are going. Myself and my lieutenant, we get phone calls at night from our visitors, during the day, whenever we have an open line that if something needs to be changed or there's a concern, we need to know about it now. So, and that's how we operate our board.
And you had mentioned when we spoke on the phone too, that you make an effort for folks to have a private conversation with the folks who come in. Did I have that right?
Yes, they are mostly one-on-one, mostly
Yeah.
one-on-one conversations with them.
Yeah.
So we have a couple that come in person, but it's still through, it's non-contact, it's through glass. But personal experience contact is the best. But I think seeing each other, the actual person between glass and over computer is the next step. So we've been opening that door up a little bit to allow that when needed. So it's not all by computer. So I don't know when we're ever going to open back up to have contact visits again.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing. It's a very hard thing to operate this way.
Yeah. And Becky, let me just come back to you in a second. While we're on the subject, I just wanted to see if Perry had numbers for how often Board of Visitors members are in contact with residents?
Well, given the population size of the prison, which on a pre-COVID fluctuated between 980 to 1,050. Given that fluctuation in resident population size, to do the equivalent to what Tim has just suggested would mean that, good Lord, we'd have to have 500 boards of visitors members. So it's apples and oranges. It's not the same thing. Sadly, I'm inspired to hear what Tim has to say because I would like to move on that within our group. We are scattered throughout the state, and as I've mentioned, all the way from Denise in Pleasant Point in Calais to Bill over and near Gould Academy. We're all over the place, and we just don't live nearby. I happen to, as does John. So, but we're over there. We will go and see, and from time to time, usually about a subject of our or their collective interest. Mine was restorative justice because of working with young people in a nonprofit for many, many, many years. So I would engage the men in that, and we had courses through UMA, but it's a very limited population. So to try to answer your question, Shemaya, I would say that our Board of Visitors is probably, well, I can do the numbers, it's probably 10% of what Tim does in terms of resident contact, 10%.
So like in any given month, I'm sorry, I'm not quick in my head with those numbers. So I'm just trying to get a general idea of how much contact the board members actually have with residents. You know what I mean?
Well, the contact that we have is 10% will be 100 visits a month.
Okay.
Out of 1,000.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. 90 visits a month. That's high.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll sort of revisit that and say, okay, maybe that's closer to 6 or 7%. But one of the issues is that the prisoners, the men who are in residence there, frequently see the Board of Visitors as a lobbying ticket for their grievances within the prison. Well, there's all sorts of administrative functions that are designed to handle it, and they do handle them very effectively. So if we do go in and we encourage that type of relationship, we find ourselves simply just deflecting grievance processes for men in there. So our focus is trying to be subject specific, that we go in and we try to handle things on a subject specific basis, not on an incident where they've been written up for an infraction or something.
Okay.
So it is different. It really is different. I think with what Tim, he has I think it's a luxury. I love it because one of the common denominators I'm picking up in today is, one-to-one relationships, or where it's at. The ability that you have for doing that is pretty unique. I'd love to have, perhaps a subcommittee of board members who were caseworkers who were destined or targeted just to meet with men on a weekly basis. That would be fabulous, but we just don't have it.
Okay. And Becky, you had a question?
I have a lot of questions. I've forgotten all, I think. So one of my questions is the role of sort of an advocacy. How does that play? Are these boards of visitors? Maybe I should ask Tim first. Is there an advocacy role for the Board of Visitors? And then the other part of that might be a support role for the staff at the jail. Or is there a role in between there somewhere?
The only way we could make this program work is to have the staff to buy in with it also, to understand that these are meaningful meetings. These really are the best, and it makes their job a little bit easier when these programs are. Since we started this, it's reduced a lot of conflicts. They had a place to vent. Each week they have a place to vent to our Board of Visitors, and so we're lucky in that way. The staff has really bought into it. So yes, that makes it a lot easier with the staff. engaged with this. They know it's coming. If there's not a Zoom link, if one forgets to call in, they'll show up today. Why hasn't so-and-so, why haven't I seen the Zoom link today for the meeting? And then they do advocate for the inmate population. We have one visitor that's been with we just recognized her. She's been with us for 18 years as a jail. A straight volunteer for 18 years. She's here every week for the last 18 years. Plans her vacations around Tuesdays. So she's here. Tuesdays her day. She plans her family vacation. So she's available to be here on Tuesdays. So yes, they just don't tell us. They just don't advise us what they hear. They follow up with it. They make sure that the concerns are being heard, and we address them as they come forward. And they know they're part. A lot of times they're part of the decision-making process, and they're part of the and they're updated on how we move forward with it. Does that help?
Yes, it does. My other question has to do with the other people on the in our meeting here. And if anybody want to chime up about their connections with the Board of Visitors, is this a new understanding? Is this something that you've been using, and etc.? Like Glenn, do you relate to the Board of Visitors? Can you hear
I do
me?
not. No, I haven't had any involvement with that board.
And Maggie, that's true of you too?
I can't say I've had any involvement, at least not with the Hancock County. I was aware of the Maine State Prison Board, but I have not had any.
And Jennifer, same thing. So this meeting is being very successful in our group's goal, which is to, create a forum for communication.
And Leslie, I wonder if excuse me, Becky, I wonder what it is for you, the answer to Becky's question.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm having to deal with some data entry thing. That deadline was earlier today, so multitasking a little bit. I'm really appreciative of the conversation. So if the question was I along the lines of being aware? I was aware. I wasn't aware the extent to which there was a visit once a week, which was like really good to know. And I think that was. I mean, I'm excited about the conversation and excited about actually contributing to it a little bit more as we move forward. I don't know if that was if that answered your question, Becky.
Yes, I'm sort of testing the effectiveness of our group to see if we're being effective.
We plan on having a meeting next week or the following week. We're doing in April. I just put a group chat out there. It's my email address.
Okay.
If you if you contact me with the email address, we will loop you into our next meeting so you can set in and hear the discussion points and the concerns as we move forward. We have no issue with that. Be honest with you, this is the second time I've heard of anything of any people having any interest with the Board of Visitors. What it's about. It's really been, like we said, we're kind of out of sight, out of mind. The facilities and what happens inside the facilities even more so. But I can attest the Hancock County Jail we made some great strides because of our volunteers, the Board of Visitors. The commissioners have gone, this started 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. The commissioners gone above and beyond to start programs within the facility, support outside the facility. So I like to think Hancock is kind of the bar that we want people to follow. I know that's just a smoke screen for me, a wish for me, but that's what we feel. We feel we're making a difference. Recidivism rate is strong here. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of repeat, but it's hard for these people in this area to just go someplace else to find another group to hang out with. When they get out, when they call couch surfing, they're right back to the friends. I mean, that same core group that they got in trouble with is who they're back with. And I don't know how we'd ever stop that from happening in these small areas.
Gotta,
people
you're gonna take the whole route, maybe. I've got a, oh, I forgot already. So, all right.
But
And
you
let
have
me
my
just
email. Any
jump-
questions? You just send me, Rebecca, any questions, and I will get back to you with some
Well,
answers.
I guess my question has to do with relationship with towns. Do you find any communication between the select boards of all the different towns that you have jurisdiction with? Do you find that?
I do not. That would be all, because the sheriff is the housekeeper. I work for the sheriff. He's the one that's really out there on politically that deals with all. That's who people contact usually is the sheriff. If they have any questions or concerns, they reach out to the sheriff, and the sheriff turns to me and we have a discussion. So mostly everything that's comes through the sheriff, if that makes sense, because he is the.
But not the commissioners. The commissioners, well, they get you programmed. So I guess they are aware of.
Yes. Yeah, they are aware of what's going on up here. I feel they are. They seem to know. But as we have monthly meetings or bi-monthly meetings with the commissioners, try to keep them updated on everything that's going on of concern, and anything that turns into a financial burden is always brought to the commissioners as we move forward. So I would say, yeah, everything comes through the sheriff, then it comes through me. If I have a call, I would contact the sheriff anyways directly to discuss it. And then if things need to be taken to the commissioners, they are certainly taken there on the bi-monthly meetings that they hold.
Mhm.
That's great.
Yeah, I think Antonio can attest that we are very open. They're very engaged with us. It's nothing. We don't surprise anybody when we go to the meetings. Everybody kind of knows what's going on before we get there. So we're very open. We're lucky. From what I've heard from other counties, we're very lucky to have the commission board that we have here that's very open and concerned about law enforcement and the jail.
Nice.
Ant, did you want to jump in about that? No?
No, I didn't. Just thinking back on my time on the bench, the jail was always one of my concerns, keeping it open for one thing back in 2015. Before Tim's time there, if anybody knows the story, what kept the jail open was we needed a new roof, and I made sure we got a new roof, and then we couldn't, after spending all that money, couldn't very well close it, right? But you know, the commissioners are obliged to tour the jail annually, and they've really, I mean, go up in the attic and look at the wiring and everything. So it's a good, I agree with everything that's being said here. We're fortunate, and I you know, I don't know why any other county would, well, except for Penobscot that has that whole space problem up there. But you know, what we're saying here is Hancock County is a model, and you know, the safety inspections always pass. So yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, thank you. I have a question that's one of the ones that was sent in from the person who couldn't be here. And it looks like it might be a contrast between the Maine State Prison and the Hancock County Jail. Perry, something you said earlier about the grievance process and the
Right.
trying to keep a separation between the Board of Visitors work and the grievance process. The person who wrote in actually asked if the boards of visitors have access to the grievance reports as a way to get a sense of what are issues that are going on in the prison or in the county jail, for that matter.
Short answer, Shemaya, is yes, we have access to everything. As representatives of the governor's office, we have access to everything. We do not intentionally sort of run around the end of a warden or a CEO or anybody else. We go through channels, but we do have access to everything. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's nothing's withheld. Now, and I just did some quick math while Tim was talking, and I figured out that for us to have, there are 5 members on our Board of Visitors for the prison. For us to have the same one-to-one relationship that he has with his membership at the county jail, we would need 425 Board of Visitors. That's just the math.
Right, that's not going to happen.
Now, no, it's not going to happen. However, I am delighted to have heard this today because it reminds me that there probably is something that we could do if we look at this very differently. And I would like to take this back to the board, since that's what we seem to do, is try to find innovative ways to make changes. And see if there's something that we could do in terms of caseloads or people or having these connections. I do know that the experiences that all of us have had, all the boards or all the visitor members that I've known, is that it have been very significant, the relationship with the men. Because the one thing that's different, and I don't know, is Anthony, it sounds like were you either an attorney or a judge at one time?
Of county commissioner.
A county commissioner, okay.
Mhm.
Well, then you all understand the process better than I, and that is that a jail presumably is a place to house people until their trial comes up. That's a short, oversimplified version, but it's a housing facility for people who are waiting to have their cases heard. A prison is after the gavel has come down, the sentence has been prescribed, and they now are in either a restitution or retributive or a reparation process for X periods of years. That's a very different mindset than the mindset of a person who's sitting in jail saying, well, my hearing's coming up in 2 weeks or 2 months or whenever, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very different mindset. And I think that perhaps something in terms of communications, Shemaya, that you all may want to think about is the difference in the mindsets of the people that you're working with. And I know from experience, a long experience in education, there are ways of helping people change, if they choose, change their mindsets into something different. There are ways of doing this, very successful, that are behavior focused and very exciting. And I think the prisoners at the Maine State Prison are behaving differently because of this. And if you want to get further into this with neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, in terms of brain development, people do change. And we're not going to see that within perhaps a 2-month or 6-month jail time as much as we are within a 12-year prison sentence. That's part of the difference between what Tim's work is and what my work is, although there are common threads within us. And I'm thrilled to have been reminded of this one-to-one relationship, Tim. Thank you very, very much.
Tim, did you have thoughts on that?
No, I just want to reiterate that anytime anybody here has a question, you have my email. I put it in the chat, just reach out to me. We'll respond. Sometimes it might take me a day or so, but I'll respond. And I know I'll keep Perry's email close to my
Please.
desk here, and we'll be in touch. And
Please do. Yeah.
yeah.
Love to get same thing. I'm sorry, Shemaya, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask from what you were just saying, Perry, about the long-term change for people because they're in the prison for an extended amount of time. And so helping to support long-term change in a positive direction is part of what the visitors, the folks who are on the Board of Visitors, are there to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
And a great example of that, the quick story is that Warden Liberty, Randall Liberty Commissioner, when he was the warden, brought in a dog training program. for men to actually have these dogs, service dogs, brought in, train them for specific people on the outside, whether it was for an autistic child or whether it was for a vet who needed someone to help him or her get around. It didn't make any difference, but the men trained these dogs. Now to do that, that's 6 months, a year, 2 years minimum. And that is impossible to have within a jail setting. I mean, I'm sure you can do it, but it probably is very difficult to do that within a jail setting simply because the rotation of people in and out is so constant. And I guess my point around that is that we were heavily in support of that because it helped the relationship with the corrections officers. The assaults went down. The statistics that they keep at the prison are substantial, and they're measured. They measure their success on graphs and changes that happens on little points on a graph. And they really did go down. And they have a special pod of men at the prison who was just for dog training. And another one is just for beekeeping and raising vegetables in the pathways, in between the pathways in the prison courtyard. Randy is he was truly an amazing person. And I just, at any rate, those are perhaps the differences. But once again, this is probably the 8th time I've said this. It's the one-to-one relationship that we have been allowed as board members that I think for us is the most significant part of our experiences.
Yeah.
And I say for change, you read books on neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, that research that's being done. I think I forget the fellow's name in California. At any rate, it indicates that, as human beings, we really do change.
Yeah.
And having made a bad decision once does not mean that we're going to make this a bad decision again. It does not mean that. Change is possible. And I think that's, go ahead.
And kind of going to that in some ways, another one of the questions that I was sent had to do with, for either one of you, if the members of the boards of visitors follow up with residents after they've been released, and that possibly some people would feel like they could talk more freely after they had been released.
Interesting.
We have what we call recovery coaches that come into the facility to help guide them onto where they want to go, housing and such, is through Healthy Acadia. And we ask everybody to maintain contact with their recovery coach on the outside, which is the goal. That's their contact, the liaison from the jail to society, if you will. So yes, we do. And also myself, probably a lot of the individuals that as they're released from our facility will have Lieutenant Shepard or myself's work phone number. And we ask them to stay in contact with us if they're struggling, see if we can help them. A lot of our volunteers will, if they reach out to us, our volunteers will reach out to them and try to prevent them from coming back to the doors. That's our goal. So yes, we do maintain as much as they'll allow us. If they want that, we can make that happen. But we can't, once they're outside the doors, we can't make the decisions for them. But we do have that opportunity here at Hancock that if they want to maintain contact, check in with us weekly, whatever they want to do, whatever they think they need to do to maintain where they want to go, we're there to assist.
Yeah. So that's the support piece of that, which sounds really good. And does that also have a feedback piece for you? Like not necessarily the contact they have with officers, because they might kind of feel more intimidated by that, but folks who are on the Board of Visitors who hear stuff afterwards and then can get that back to you?
We have a contact with I don't know if she's an oversight director of the recovery coaches, and she's the one on our Board of Visitors. So if something is fed back to her, then it feels it's like something we need to address in here, then yes, it is addressed. It's brought back to us.
Yeah, that's great. And how about you, Perry? Is there any contact after people are released by the board?
There is, Shemaya, but it really is circumstantial as much as anything. Again, yeah, really is circumstantial. Once again, it's a numbers thing. You know, as I said, we would need 425 of us to do in terms of percentage what Tim is doing. And we don't, there are 5 of us total.
Yeah.
So we're at a different position. It makes us perhaps seem a little more, distant, aloof. We're, as individuals, we are not that way. We all have our favorites and our favorite topics that we go into the prison with. Mine happens to be restorative justice. And I will talk with anyone for hours about that and Native peoples and how successful they were for thousands of years. But I do want to mention one group that you all could become part of it. To answer your question, there's a group called Maine Recovery Network, I think it is. Does everyone know about this? Run by Bruce Noddin, Noddin. You can probably Google it. I was trying to look at my phone to see if I could, but it's not here. Yeah, Maine, Shemaya, I'll find this in my email history and send you a copy of it.
Okay.
Bruce did great stuff, and it's all personal with him, like it involves his son. So it's a Maine Recovery Network. It is big. They meet all over the state almost weekly, and it is about helping men and women as they exit the justice system, find housing, jobs, get training, places to work, try to skirt around the employer applications that have a little box on it that says, check this if you're a felon, good Lord. It's staggering. So he's done great work around that. And it might be something that your emerging group, communications, could benefit from, because it's all about communications.
Yeah. And I'm curious if the members of the Board of Visitors for the Maine State Prison has a relationship there so that you're hearing the messages back from residents, like maybe they would be more comfortable after they've been released to say, I think this is an issue that somebody on the Board of Visitors could be addressing.
I think that would be a wishful thinking, but I don't think that is what they're interested in, where the heck they're going to live. And I need a job. I need training. There still is within the system, sad to say, there still is this, oh, you've done 9 years of time? Good, here's $50 and a bus ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Faced with that, and we've got 950 people who are going to, some of them be there for a lot longer, but but it is changing. And this is the point I do want to make also, that it is changing. And I am thrilled to be able to say to you all, to this group, and also to the legislative committee, if we get their ear, that this is a significant event in Maine's overview of what it has to offer its citizenry.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, let's just stop with that.
Okay. And when does your next, oh, I'm sorry, Becky.
I just have a quick question. Tim, the data on the jail is, how would I access that? Is that easy to access?
Oops, you're on mute, Tim.
I guess I didn't catch that.
Data on jail statistics, is that, can I access that somehow, or is it?
We can look back at our movement logs. That's what we'd have to do in-house and draft something. That wouldn't be available for you just to pull up, but I can take and
Like if I had some specific statistic I was interested in, like, I don't know what.
you email me and I'll find it for you.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
And I had something in my head. I'm sorry, I lost it.
Well, let me intervene, Shemaya.
Okay.
Another another example of the work that's being done on the one-to-one level that we do. And that's my friend John Wilson, who's also a board member, runs an organization called Just Alternatives, which is a national organization for victim advocacy. And if you think about it, our justice system in this country is based on a crime against either the state or the federal government, where you are prosecuted based on, state prosecutors. Where's the victim? Does the victim ever get to speak up and say, I have needs too? I'm talking from my restorative justice perspective at this point. I have needs also. It doesn't happen. So there are many things that can be done in terms of if you have perhaps a point of view or a mindset that you all would like to work into, you could tackle some of these issues, and I think it makes some serious changes. But John's very good at that. The Just Alternatives is about victim advocacy. That word has come up. It's all about victim advocacy.
And we have an active restorative justice organization over here. Leslie had to leave early, but she's the one who is the director of that.
Right.
And I was just wondering, when does your annual report come out for the Maine State Prison? Like what time of the year?
Sort of when I get around to it.
Uh-huh. Because I think
it-
if you wanted to use it as a tool for really getting information out that you feel like is important for people to know about issues at the prison that residents are raising to you, there are people who are kind of paying attention at this point.
Right. I say that, a little bit with tongue in cheek and facetiously, because I can just specifically, I've already written this last year, 21's report, which is fairly comprehensive, but it does end with a question about, in terms of looking for people to help us market the successes for the state of Maine. I ask a question: are you that person? I doubt that anyone will answer, but I put it out there. They're all available through the Maine State Library, I believe. I've tried to track these down over the past and I couldn't find any in the past. They weren't. So whoever's been talking to you behind the scenes, I looked for them and I couldn't find them. So I started a new way of being certain that they are published. The commission, the Committee on CEC and Economics and Corporations requires us to submit every year, file every year by December 31st, which I do. That's required, but it's only a paragraph. And it's just, you're only allowed 750 characters. So I fill it up with what I can without worrying about my syntax and grammar. And then that's it. The bigger report, which goes to the warden and the commissioner, and is more of a reflection of what we have been through, what we'd like to have happen. But once again, those get submitted to the Committee on Criminal Justice. So I think possibly there's a source for you. So the committee, the Legislative Committee on Criminal Justice, to whom we also report, and that's in the bylaws. Yeah, it's in the bylaws that created us. It says each Board of Visitors shall appear before the Joint Standing Committee of the Legislature having jurisdiction over criminal justice and public safety matters upon request. How often do you think we get a request? Not very often.
Oh,
So-
never.
So yeah, anyway, this is not sour grapes. I'm just sort of trying to either make light or throw some light on issues of our current status quo. We are moving forward. We're moving ahead. We're excited about what we're doing, and to the extent that we can make some changes, we look forward to that.
Yeah, and we very much appreciate both of you coming here to speak with us. And as we're coming up on the end of our time here, are there any more questions that have come to mind? Suzanne?
Yes, I had a question for Tim. It sounds like you don't have people that stay at the jail for like years and years. Is that true? Like they're,
They're here on what they call pre-arraignment, which wait for the first court appearance, and then they're here on pretrial. Pre-trial, we've had some pretty serious crimes. I mean, they could be here for 360 days or greater waiting to go to trial.
okay,
The word of speedy trial is not speedy anymore. Usually there's a time frame there. And then once they're sentenced, if they're sentenced over 9 months in the day with a felony, they'll move on to the Maine prison system. So if they're sentenced for less than 9 months, they'll be retained here in our facility. And we will use them to, now that's where we have our, we had home confinement, we had work release and such. Those are the people that would, if they met the criteria, they could do that. But they're the ones that we help assist run a facility with trustee status to gain time and stuff. But so we can retain over, as you know, years, 1 or 2 years, if we need to, while they're waiting to go to trial. Once they're sentenced, under 9 months in a day, they stay here, and over that, we move them to the Maine state system.
okay, thank you.
And you know, I just wanted to point out on the recidivism question that came up earlier. Our last presentation last month was by folks from the Waldo County Sheriff's Department, and they have a community liaison program and a LEAD program. That acronym is Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. And they've had really striking results with decreasing recidivism as a result of those two programs. The community liaison program is more for immediately when things come up, and like a social service person, a person with mental health, background, goes with the officer who's going on the call, or depending on the situation, if it's safe and it's all feels like the right thing, that person just goes out himself. And then the LEAD program is more about making sure that people have services that they need for situations to try and make it so they don't even end up coming back to the jail. And I wondered, Tim, if you got to see that, if that's interesting to you here in Hancock County, or your thoughts on that?
I did not see that, but they are the leaders in the state with those programs. They're doing amazing things with that. Just it hasn't trickled into our county yet. I know it's been a topic of discussion, but we just have not taken on that role at this time.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like a couple of the local police departments, it's too bad we lost Glenn earlier, and it's not Ellsworth, but I've been told that both Bucksport and the Bar Harbor police departments are doing something along those lines just within their departments. So maybe that'll end up having.
And I think Ellsworth is too. I think they have the Angels program or something. I don't want to speak for them, but they have something there also that they're preventing people from coming through our doors with the programs that they have. So, and we have amazing departments around here that are doing their own thing, that also, out of sight, out of mind. They don't bring it to the forefront. That's just part of their job. They do it. They feel it's best for the community, and a lot of not much self-promoting of stuff that they do.
Yeah. And I just want to make the point, I'll come right back, Perry. I just want to make the point on that subject that we do have a recording from that presentation last month. That was by the Waldo County Sheriff's Department Chief Deputy Jason Trundy and the community liaison officer over there, Rob Porter. And so at the same place where folks who see this later have found this recording, that recording is also available if you're interested. And if you'd like to see it, Tim, that would be great. I can send you the link again if that would be.
I'll review that. That's for sure.
Okay, great. And Perry, what were you going to say?
Just to reinforce the notion that Bruce Nodden's Maine Reentry Coalition that I mentioned earlier, which I will send to you, Shumaya. I think send that around, and I think you'll be very pleased to see that this is what's going on in the state. And I'm sure you can make use of great portions of it. I almost think that Bruce somehow got started in Waldo County at the reentry center there. This is vague memory, but I think it's really good stuff. In fact, we were at the position as, now this is typical, this is perhaps a final short little vignette. A number of years ago, 6, 7 years ago, we were thinking of taking Bolduc, which is the farm at the Maine State Prison. It's a $4 or $5 million facility, and turning it into a reentry program for the state. And that would require caseworkers matched with inmates for 5 years, while they were 3 years in, 2 years out, or 2 years in, 3 years out, with the intent of doing exactly what Bruce and his group is doing now. Then Bruce came in and sort of set this in motion with his energy and enthusiasm. We said, that's great. Just please run with it, do it. And I will send that to you when we get off. I may not get to it today, but I will send it to you soon.
That's okay. That would be great. On Monday, we'll be sending out a note to the whole group with the link for this recording, and I'll include it in that. So everybody who's seeing this can have that reference also. Okay, well, we're right up on time. Anything else anybody would like to add?
I would just like to say, next step is sitting there quietly. They do some great programs. What they do is I mean, they're another one that doesn't wave their flag. I mean, they are boots on the ground doing great work. And so that shows how people aren't looking to get a pat on the back. They just got their heads down doing the work. And that's one of the organizations in the county that really is stepping up also, that doing a lot of untold greatness in the county.
That's great.
I
Oh, go
have to
for
say,
it,
we
Maggie.
couldn't do it without your assistance, so we appreciate you guys reaching out to us anytime.
And next month, on that subject of getting to learn more about what they're doing, our speaker for next month is Dorothy Martell, who's the director for Next Step. So anybody who wants to hear more. And for those who aren't familiar, Next Step is the domestic violence project in this area. It's Hancock County or Hancock and Washington, Maggie?
We do Hancock and Washington County, and we also work with our sister projects throughout the state. So anybody who's reaching out to us who might not fall in our catchment area, we can connect them because we all work under the Maine Coalition.
Against domestic violence, right? Yeah. That's great. Thank you for pointing that out, Tim. That's really great. Well, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you especially to Tim and Perry for taking this time to come and talk with us. Thank you for agreeing to it being recorded. That'll help it, your effort in going through all this today will be a resource. And please feel free to use us to connect people with that resource if that would be helpful. And we will look forward to being in touch about everything we got to talk about today.
Thank you for the opportunity.